I'm your host, Ariel.
And I'm your host, Alyssa,
Welcome to Ghost Tea Podcast.
a podcast for those who seek magic.
Hello, ghosties. Welcome back.
Hello, happy spooky season. Today we are sharing how we paranormal investigate some of our paranormal experiences and haunted location stories.
We figured it was just appropriate to have during spooky season, aka fall, to have topics like that for you all. So that is what we're talking about today. I'm so excited, but just a reminder that everyone has different views on things, and that's okay. We don't ask you to believe what we do, we just want to share what we found in our personal path with others.
Oh my god, guys, guess what? Guess what, ghosties? We have official Ghost Tea merchandise.
Yay!
Woo! Oh my god, we've been wanting to do this for so long, guys. So listen, you should check it out. Get yourself a little spooky mug, a little spooky hoodie, and carry Ghosty around with you everywhere you go.
I'm so excited. It's fucking adorable.
It is. It's so cute. We have a link to our merch site through ghosttpodcast.com. We will also put it in the description below. And we also have it in our regular links through our social media platforms for Ariel and I.
Mm-hmm. Today, we're going to be talking about those paranormal investigations because, as you all know, Alyssa and I are paranormal
Paranormal
investigators.
Rangers.
We're paranormal rangers. What was harsh as that?
Paranormal Rangers.
Honestly, best jobs ever.
Yep.
Yes, we're your local paranormal rangers, but also paranormal investigators and mediums. So we do all the ghosty things. We look at the ghosties, we talk to the ghosties, and we get rid of the ghosties.
I feel like that's
Get
a
back
great
on
way
that
to do it.
horse that you came in on and turn your butt around. This town ain't big enough for the both of us.
The poor ghosties are like, but there's so
They're
much
just like,
room.
this went so south. But yeah, we're just going to talk about paranormal investigation stories. I have been formally paranormal investigating since 2015, and it is one of my passions. Like I love paranormal investigation so much.
It's
I
so
love
much
it.
fun. It's such an
It's
adventure every
so
time.
it's
It,
amazing.
yeah.
And every single investigation is different.
Yep.
And I know I've already done an episode on paranormal investigation as far as like ethics go, like how to ethically do it. So we're not really going to get super into that. Like we'll cover a couple things on that, but ultimately we just wanted to talk about like what it's like to paranormal investigate. So if you've never been paranormal investigating, basically what it is you are just going in to a space that has alleged spiritual activity, whether that is a well-known haunting or local lore around it that includes information about paranormal activity. And then you just bring tools if you have them or just yourself, because within the paranormal investigative world, one of the common things that's said is that the best tool that you will ever have in your toolbox is yourself.
Yep.
And I firmly believe that. I really don't believe that you need any particular fancy tools to go paranormal investigating, but I do really encourage people to have them just because, especially if you have clairvoyance or clair abilities that you're utilizing in your investigation, it can be really nice to have something that validates what you're experiencing.
Mhm.
So I really like to encourage people to have tools if they have them, even if it's just using the recorder on your phone, because that can pick up on EVPs, which is electronic voice phenomenon. So whether you're taking EVPs or you are just taking notes on a notebook, regardless of what you're using, you are going to be your best tool. So I don't want you to ever feel like you can't go paranormal investigating if you don't have any tools available. I feel like a lot of people have gone paranormal investigating through like haunted tours and stuff like that. I do want to mention that within those tours, a lot of times they won't really follow the rules, quote unquote, that would typically be followed within a formal investigation. And what I'm
I can give a story with that.
yeah, one thing, like one example I can give of that is that within a formal investigation, you are going to turn off your phones onto airplane mode, because otherwise it will affect EMF detectors and can cause them to spike because your phone signal is being picked up on by the EMF detector. So if you want to go into those more seriously, put your phone on airplane mode while you're there to just kind of cut down on the ability for that to happen, because within formal investigations we would have that measure taken, whereas in paranormal tours or things like that, sometimes they won't do it purposefully, but other times they will purposefully not have people turn off their phones or have them on airplane mode because they want people to feel like they're having an experience, which, give and take whether or not that is something that you feel comfortable with. But just keep in mind that a lot of places will do that, just to make it entertaining and make sure that people have some experience that they can come away from that with.
Mhm. When I was in Scotland, I was in Edinburgh, and I did a haunted underground vault and graveyard tour there, and I traveled solo. I like to travel internationally by myself, so I was completely alone with, like, no other friends except for, like, the strangers who were also on the tour with me and the tour guide. As we were exploring the graveyard specifically, there's almost like a method that the tour guides will use to try to almost like instill a sense of eeriness with you, which is obvious. It's just entertainment, right? It's how they talk about the story or like the inflection of their voice or whatever the case may be. And they tend to start these tours at like sundown to try to get more of
Mhm.
like a creepy vibe. They might give you lanterns to carry. All of this has a part to play in like how you experience it. But of course, little did they know, I can see the spookies. So so it was really funny to me because I don't usually go on haunted tours expecting to experience what the tour guide wants me to experience. It always
Right,
ends up
right.
going very different. If anything, the
Mhm.
spirits talk more when they're not talking. Like, the
Mhm.
spirits are more active when we're walking to the next location.
Yes.
Like, it's so weird to me, but it's just something I noticed. So, we were just, like, walking around the graveyard, and they were talking about the history of it, and the ghosties actually really liked the tour guides from what I gathered. Like, they really liked that the tour guides were keeping their memory alive and keeping the memory of the city alive and, like, the history, and by virtue of making money from these things, it makes sure that they keep the cemetery and graveyard in, like, good working condition. So, like, from that point of view, I think the ghosties were pretty happy, but it just didn't like, they didn't, practice the same kind of spiritual etiquette that I do as a
Right,
medium,
right.
as a death worker, as a more recent paranormal investigator. So I would leave coins at the entry, whereas everybody would just keep walking through. Like it's a belief thing, right? It doesn't mean they're gonna be
Mhm.
haunted for the rest of their life, but like it's just something that I did. And yeah, just seeing the ghosts and stuff walking around, they were more interested in the people that they hadn't yet seen than they were in the tour guide. So like you would see the ghosties kind of walking along other like alongside people or like kind of checking out like what the kids were doing and like it was just
Yeah.
a very interesting experience. It was also a very weird jarring experience for me that I sometimes I forget. This is gonna sound weird, but sometimes I forget that not all ghosts sound the way you think they're gonna sound. Like, they had
Right.
a very obvious Scottish accent, and I was like, don't know why I was taken back by that. We're in fucking Scotland. And I was like, "Whoa!" Like, I don't know why I was freaked out by it, but I don't know. Call me stupid. I don't know, whatever. But I was just like, "Why listen to you." And, like, similarly with, like, how they were dressed very modern even though they were, standing next to a headstone that would indicate that they've been passed away for, like, hundreds of years, you know?
Right.
And weird shit like that, but I wasn't gonna, like, raise my hand and be like, "I think Sandra's right next to you." Like, I just was there for the fun of it, you know?
Yeah, and I do agree with you, is like, when you do EVPs, obviously it's etiquette within EVP usage that you mark everything that happens. So, like, if you are outside and the wind picks up, you're like, "Wind picking up." If you fart, you're like, "Hey, Ariel farted." Or, like, if someone shifts on the ground, you mention that, like, so that when you're listening back to those recordings that something is happening that's mundane that you're not going to think is paranormal, because it's not on video, right? You can't see what's happening while you're listening to it. So you have to mention those things, oh, I heard a sheep in the background, right? But within EVPs, oftentimes you will find that the spirits will actually be talking while another person is talking. It's
Mhm.
really, really common.
Mhm.
Or you'll be walking and then they'll be talking. And it's the weirdest thing. I don't know why that is. I sometimes wonder if, in a very weird way, like the ghosts are almost shy and they're like, I need to wait until they're like doing things because like it's too much pressure otherwise. like like there's so much pressure to talk like, "Oh my
Poor
god."
little
And then
ghosties. Like, I have stage
right, and
fright.
then they're like walking yeah, and then they're walking away and they're just like, "Oh, I can finally let out that ghost
Oh,
fart that I've been holding in." Like
I was waiting so long for them to finish this
yeah.
up.
They're just like, "How long are these people gonna be here?" But
The
yeah,
only thing
I
that's
I
scary is having an audience.
right, right. It does make me wonder if maybe they sometimes get a little bit
Yeah.
nervous. They're just like, "Oh, well, I
These are
I don't
just
know what
like,
to say." Like
yeah, anecdotal things that I've just kind of noticed and come across in various different situations that they tend to really liven up in a manner of speaking when
Mhm.
uh when like you're actively moving or like searching or talking or like inquiring rather than just sitting and waiting. But it also depends. It's very contextually dependent. That's not always the case. But if you haven't already heard our paranormal investigation of the Chateau Laurier, good lord, I just choked on my spit. If you haven't already listened to the episode of Ariel and I and our paranormal investigation of the Chateau Laurier in downtown Ottawa, you should definitely have a listen, in addition to the mediumship episode where we talk about how we communicate with those who have passed on to kind of get a better sense of
Yeah.
like the processes that we've done in active paranormal investigations, in addition to how it is that we approach spirit in an ethically respectful way, which isn't necessarily going to be replicated with every paranormal investigation that you may be a part of, because sometimes
Right.
it's run by people who don't actually believe in it and it's an entertainment
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, some of the investigations that you'll go to are just that. They are
Mhm,
purely entertainment and not really based it from people who actually believe that that's happening. So
mhm,
that's something to keep in mind, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, with I know with Alyssa and I, when we go into paranormal investigations, one thing that I was always taught and we continue in our paranormal investigations is tuning into the area that we're going to or the place that we're going to days or even hours before we get there and seeing what we get and taking notes because as people who have abilities, I try my best to have my tune-ins be as unbiased as possible. So I like to have the least amount of information about the place that we're going to. All I need to know is that it's claimed to be haunted. That's all I need to know. I don't want to know the history. I don't want to know any kind of background. I want to be able to have the investigation first and then find out the background and the history because I don't want to go in and know that there was a murder in room 5. I want to be able to pick up on that with my abilities and or through the interactions that I have with spirit and then be able to confirm that by hearing it later. Like that is really validating. So the way that someone without clear abilities or without going in as a way to test their abilities might approach it differently than how someone with clear abilities might do it due to that just because you're wanting to be able to verify what you're getting because that is an opportunity for us to do that. As people with clear abilities, sometimes we don't have an opportunity to do that. So it is a way for us to do that when we're paranormal investigating. And I will absolutely take advantage of that.
mhm.
Like I'll be like, I'm gonna, validate this or like try to confirm this. And we had that happen at the chateau. Like
We
we
did.
we had things that came through in our tune-ins on the way there that we were able to confirm when we got there and we were able to like have more information about the chateau and our experiences there as well that helped validate what we were getting previously.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's a helpful way to do it. If you are unable to not know the history until afterwards, like if you're doing a tour and then a paranormal investigation, it's something where you can always either opt out and have a friend listen to the history and then come in later, or it can be something where you just keep in mind like this is something that I heard prior to coming here. And that's why if you know that you're going to get that history prior to the investigation, what I would recommend is taking notes before you ever get to the location. Like take notes or go, 30 minutes before you're supposed to get there so you can sit in the energy of the location and take notes in a notepad or on your phone and be able to compare them as they're going through the history later so that you have that timestamp for yourself because that can be a really great way to do that too.
I agree. And I think one of the benefits, or one of the things that I know Ariel and I particularly like, even though we have psychic abilities in addition to the tools, is that with the tools, it allows those who prefer to have hard evidence experience what we're experiencing at the same time.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
really nice because sometimes it's a little isolating, being the only one or the only two who can see something. And we're just like, oh man, I wish they could hear what they're saying or whatever. And so to have it come through on a spirit box or to be able to have those things correspond with your experiences as you're tuning in energetically is very validating and is
Mhm.
also a nice way to capture in real time or on video those experiences and know that like you're really actually having a paranormal experience.
Yeah.
And that's so nice
Yeah.
to do. I love it.
Oh, 1,000%. One of the experiences that I had, because my old stomping grounds when I was part of the investigations with the team that I was part of, my stomping grounds was Virginia City, Nevada. And if you've ever been there, it is just very haunted. It's very, very haunted. And we were investigating at the St. Mary's Hospital, which is now the St. Mary's Arts Center. And we were staying overnight. And I remember we were using the X Cam, which, if you're unfamiliar with the X Cam is the piece of equipment. They've had it on like Ghost Adventures before and probably Ghost Hunters as well. A lot of paranormal investigators use it. And it maps out human figures. So it will make like stick figures essentially of what it deems to be a human figure, whether it's seen or unseen. Now, there are debates of how accurate it is because a lot of times it will map out like poles or something like that as people. So it isn't always accurate. But what's really interesting is when you have experiences like we had where I was ahead of the investigators and I wasn't in a spot where I could be seeing what's happening on the X cam. And I was speaking to a younger boy spirit that I was following around upstairs in the attic area, which previously was the area where they had the women and children when it was used as a hospital. And so I was following around this young boy spirit and talking with him, and the investigators behind me had the X cam, and they would ask me to point to where he was, and I would, and it would match up with where he was on the X cam, which was really, really cool. So there's things like that where you can be like, in a way, like sometimes people can use you as a tool for
Mhm.
the investigation, which I love doing that. Like when I'm with a paranormal investigative group, I love being able to be used as a tool because
Oh, me
I feel
too.
like that
It's great.
it makes me feel great because it makes me feel like I'm doing something and helping.
I'm so
And I
good
love
at helping.
yeah, I feel like I'm helping and I'm so good at helping. And so I get really excited when I'm able to help that way. But it was just a really cool experience because what I was seeing was coming through on the X cam and was seen by other people too, which was really, really awesome.
I love that. I love when that shit happens, man.
Me
And that's why
too.
I really enjoy having those tools and being able to go to new places. But one thing that really excites me is going to places that people don't think are haunted
Yes.
because they typically are very active. Like, okay, so
Mhm.
here's an anecdotal thing that I've noticed. It's just what I've noticed in my experience. I feel that spirits, in my experience, aren't as active in graveyards and cemeteries as they
Yep.
are in busy, like busier
Agreed.
energetically.
Walmart is always more haunted
Dude,
than a cemetery.
malls,
1,000%. Yep.
downtown
Yep.
centers, like fucking
Mhm.
literally even bus stops and train stations,
Yeah.
like all these
Yeah.
places that have like a large accumulation of energy, you tend to see spirit guides and people's loved ones and ancestors and like
Yeah, if you wanna
dead
have
animals
paranormal
and pets.
experiences, Go to the fucking grocery store.
For
Like, they're
real?
everywhere. They're everywhere. You wanna pick up some eggs? Pick up some
Just
ghosties
go
too, like
evaluate a mango with your
Yeah.
ghosties.
Yeah, literally, like, "Is this ripe?" Like, literally, you can have so many paranormal experiences at grocery stores, like, it reminds me of the one story that I tell people about Gabe with the
Oh, with the
bread.
bread? Yeah.
With the bread. I wish I could, like, have this on video because otherwise you'd be able to see it, but it's not really a good story unless you can see what I'm doing, but it was a good time, but, like, things like that can happen at grocery stores. When I worked at
Yeah.
Walgreens, we were always having paranormal shit happening all the time
Mhm,
in the store. It's just areas where you have a lot of concentrations of people,
mhm.
and I feel like the one place that people expect to be haunted that is actually very haunted is hospitals.
Yeah, I was just about to say hospitals and
Mhm.
asylums. They are
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of whether people talk about having experiences at those places, there are always
Hotels too.
there's always a fuck ton of spirits there.
Yeah.
Like, there's always so many.
Yeah.
So, I feel like and I have had people kinda get disappointed when I say, like, spirits aren't really in cemeteries, and I do wanna clarify because I feel like I need to clarify every time I say that your loved ones are where you are.
Yeah.
So, if you are at the cemetery, they will be at the
Mhm.
cemetery. If you are not at the cemetery, they're not gonna be at the cemetery waiting for you or, like, feeling lonely, right? So, I just wanna make that clear 'cause I know some people have been like, "Oh, wait, they're not at their grave?" And I'm like, "Well, they're not at their grave if you're not there."
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, the spirit
they don't
realm
really have a
isn't
reason to be there.
they're not bound by space and time the way we are in our physical
Right,
plane.
right. And they're not connected to their, like, remains, right?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Um, and
Yep.
I mean, in some respects they are, like, I have found that in cases where someone is killed or something like that and they haven't had their body found,
Right,
that is when I feel like they would stay around the remains to
right.
try to have people find them.
Mhm.
But when it comes to loved ones who are respectfully put to rest, I really don't find that they stay around their remains because there's not a
No.
reason to.
I mean, even just with my
Um
own loved ones who've passed on, they're not hanging at
yeah,
their graves,
yeah.
they're with the family. They're with family
Right,
members, you know?
right.
Like, they what are they gonna do in a cemetery by themselves? Like, they
Yeah,
wanna be
that's
with their
boring.
loved ones. They wanna see you experience life and be there and, you know, watch over you and, like, just, like, imagine if you were a ghostie, because you will
Yeah.
be one day. Imagine if you're
Yeah,
a
you're a future
ghostie
ghost.
and it's like, what do you wanna do? Do you wanna hang out at your gravestone and wait for someone to visit, or do you wanna just go be part of the fun? Go have a party, ghosty party. Like, I'm gonna have a ghosty party, and I'm gonna listen to all the tea you spill. I'm gonna listen to every secret you tell. I'm gonna come up behind you, I'm gonna tap your shoulder, and I'm gonna be like, "Listen, I heard what you said about Brenda last night."
Mhm. I'm gonna
Like
leave stink bombs around your house for you to
mhm.
walk into
Yup.
1,000%. Yeah, like, I will totally do that.
I wanna be
Like
where you are. I wanna be where the
yeah,
people are. Like, it's
yeah.
honestly that. Like, I don't wanna
Mhm.
be at the cemetery, so why do you think another ghostie would wanna be at the cemetery?
Right, right. Unless that cemetery is really gorgeous, like, don't
Or
get
it's
me
very
wrong.
active, you know, like,
Yeah,
where you do visit quite often, or, like, let's say you have your
yeah,
house, like, right
yeah.
next to the cemetery or something.
Or, I do have to clarify, like, I can't say all cemeteries tend to be empty because the ones that are really old actually do tend to be more active because they don't have family to follow around anymore.
Well, I did notice that in the example with Edinburgh, it's right smack in the middle of the city. Like, the
Yeah.
cemetery is in the middle of the city because the city was built
Mhm.
around it. Because like, it kept growing with like, the cemetery was there long before many other buildings were built around it. So, I've noticed that if you have very centralized location cemeteries, you'll have
Yeah,
more
yeah.
activity. That's just what I've noticed, though. But then again, I'm always open to experiencing new ways that spirit may wish to interact with
Yeah.
cemeteries and graveyards and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, honestly, if
we
y'all
may
have a
discover
haunted
otherwise.
cemetery
Yeah.
that we should go to, like, you should
Hit
tell
us up.
us. Yeah,
Hit
let
us
us
up,
know.
man.
Tell
We
us
wanna go.
yeah, we do wanna go. We wanna go all the places.
Literally.
We wanna be those paranormal rangers.
We wanna be the paranormal rangers that
We
travel
wanna
around.
range that paranormal. Like, we wanna we wanna do Ride in on our horses
That's what we
with
wanna
those
do.
ghosties.
Like, Ariel and I, what makes it so fun doing paranormal investigations together is because we can combine the clair
Yeah.
abilities that we have with the tools at our disposal, but also too,
Yes.
because we have such a vested interest in getting to know spirit that we will go towards the dark.
Yeah, that's one thing that is I don't wanna say it's funny, but it is kind of
It
funny
is kinda
because
funny.
we kind of are that standard, like, dumb white
The
girl.
this the stupid bitch who's gonna
Yep.
die at the first of the
Yep.
movie because she goes exactly where
That's
everyone
me.
says, "Don't go," that's me
That's
too.
me.
Yeah.
Yep. As soon as I hear a sound, like, I might have that initial response of like, "Ooh, what was that?" And then I'll just be like, "Oh," and then I'm just going. I'm
Yeah, because
going.
from,
I'm
like, a primitive, like, survival point of view, my
right, right.
body might have goosebumps and, like, hair
Yeah.
on end
I
and
have initial fawn responses,
yeah.
and then I'm just like, "Ooh, let's bounce off like a little bunny
You wanna
towards
know
the danger."
something really weird that happens with me is when I get that wave of fear, it feels like a rush of warm, and then my legs get really tingly because my legs are prepping to run.
Oh, my legs get cold.
Mine get tingly. Mine are, like, ready to start running, so it's like, for me, it's flight or fight rather than fawn because it's like, I'll
Yeah, I'm a
either
fawner.
I'll either
Go
start
figure.
swinging or I'll start running. Those are the
No,
2
I just
options.
stand there like a dumbass, and I'm just like, "What's happening?"
For me, I'm like, "We gotta move this way, that way."
I need a t-shirt that's just me standing there with, like, deer in the headlights, and then you're just like a fast blur, like
Fast as fuck, boy.
fast as fuck, boy. But yeah, I
Oh.
mean, it's everybody's gonna have different, experiences, and,
Mhm,
like, there are people who, their first instinct is just to run, and that's
mhm.
okay.
Yep.
That's gonna be your first instinct, but it does take time and patience also to train yourself to be approaching it with curiosity rather than fear. And I think that's something that a lot of people have trouble with paranormal investigating is approaching it from a place of curiosity rather than fear because
Mhm.
it's normal as humans to fear what we can't see.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out how to kind of take that fear out of it and make it a little bit more approachable. And it's understandable. Like that's normal. That's human to be afraid of things that we can't see. But I feel like that is maybe I feel it sounds wrong to say advantage, but I do feel like that's almost like an advantage that people with the ability to see spirit have because we can see what's going on. So it makes it a little bit less scary in ways, I feel like.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely, and I think that what's interesting too about when you kinda lean into your clear abilities and your intuition and the way that spirit wants to connect with you, it does take the fear out of it. Like,
Yeah.
if you really allow them to connect with you, you will see that ultimately you're the one that has the power over, your space, the space that you occupy, your physical space, your physical self that you are in no matter where you are. It's spiritual boundaries. It's making sure that you have some adequate protections up, and a lot of that has to do with attitude, right? Like, you can go into a super haunted space with tons and tons of activity and just know that, you know what? Like, this is my body, this is my energy, you can't use it unless I say you can, while at the
Yeah.
same time speaking to them with the respect that spirit deserves. Like, you can
Yeah.
2 things can be true at the same time, where you can have that confidence where they will not be able to fuck with you if you don't let them fuck with you. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah, well, because
it's
sometimes
you take the
people go
power away
in.
by not allowing it
Yeah.
to happen.
Yeah, and you can go into a situation kind of giving this permission without realizing that you're giving
Mhm.
permission. Like it depends on your wording. There was something that we would do in our group before we would go into investigations where we would like it was this whole thing like we would all hold hands and like do like a protection thing which you don't
Bible.
have to do that. Yeah, like you don't have to do something that fancy, but even like having protective crystals or a protective talisman, or if you want to go the route of like a protection tattoo, you can do that too. But like something on you that helps you feel protected. And then also before going in, like you can just say out loud under your breath or say out loud as loud as you want. You can scream it, okay? For all I care, like you can be really apparent with it. Don't fuck with me, okay? um but but you can also just say in your head as you're walking into a space, like, my body is my own and nothing is allowed to touch me without my permission.
Yep.
And just that's a simple, it can be that simple. It doesn't
Yep.
have to be complicated. And also when you're working with deities too, I feel like that helps because you can always just ask your deities to, like, bring in protection if you feel safer doing that. I know that.
Similarly with ancestors and
Yeah.
angels.
Yeah, I know that when I was doing a lot of paranormal investigation in the beginning, that was when I was really still heavily working with angels, and I would be really scared being in a room alone in the dark, and having them there made it a lot easier. Even if I
Yeah.
couldn't see them, I was just like, "Okay, I know you're there, so, like, I feel safer." So, if you work with deities, you can always ask them to come with you, or even if you just call in your spirit team, even if you don't know who they are, like, they're still gonna be there, and you can ask them to be around you and just, protect you or help you to feel less afraid. You can even go as far as saying, like, "I'm calling on my spirit team to help me be open to this experience and have the connection with spirit that I'm looking for, but in a safe way," so that they can
Yep.
help facilitate ways for you to connect in a way that's not detrimental to you, which I think
Mhm.
could be a really good way to approach that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, say and your guides include your animal guides. Your animal guides can be very helpful for
Yeah,
that. Yeah, they're so
yeah.
helpful.
They're
Um
so good at helping. Have you been experiencing unexplained activity in your home, business, or area? Alyssa and I would love to help. Since childhood, we've been able to interact with the spirit realm. Naturally, we have a passion for investigating the paranormal. Our goal is to help you understand what's happening in your space and provide guidance and advice, and to bring peace to your situation.
You can book Ariel and I for a paranormal consultation through our website, www.ghosttpodcast.com. We have a special discount for our listeners. Use code GHOSTY for 10% off of your booking. That's code GHOSTY, GHOSTIE, all in capital letters. If there's anything you can kind of take away from this conversation, it's that paranormal investigation is a really fun thing. It's something you can do that you can have protections, you can do it safely, you can do it with respect for spirit, and haunted locations may be in places you might not have thought about. And also too, like, I always think about when people tell me that they're like afraid of ghosts, I can't help but just get a little sad because it's
Yeah.
such a reflection of our culture to be
Yeah.
afraid of what we can't see, like the ghost of spirit, and like be very disconnected from our spiritual selves, to be very
Mhm.
fearful or skeptical of our intuition instead of leaning into it and communicating with our ancestors and spirits on a regular level to the point where it's integrated into our culture and it's acceptable and encouraged, and it's just quite the opposite, and it makes me a little sad because honestly, if there's one thing that I always hope to do through our conversations about mediumship or our paranormal investigations or just talking about ghosty adventures and talking about deities, all of these things is just to take the fear away from tapping into the spiritual realm
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not scary. It's
It's not
literally
scary.
transformative. It's beautiful, it's transcendent. It gives an injection of love and connection to things that are greater than you, and it's humbling, it's exciting, it's peaceful. Like, I'm so fucking at peace with the idea of death, it's not even funny. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so at peace with that. I just hope that if I go out, it ain't something stupid or that it's, like, really painful. That's all I hope for. The
Yeah.
rest, I'm so down.
Well, yeah, I
I'm
mean,
so down.
I tell people all the time, like, I'm not afraid of dying, I'm afraid of, like, the physical part of dying, but I'm not
Yep.
afraid of death.
No, me neither.
And but I agree with you, like, I feel like our society portrays spiritual stuff as so scary, whether it's through media, like scary movies or whatever, or it's through, religious ideas of things outside of the common religions. I mean, I hate to, like, bring Christianity into it in the sense of this, but, like, I know within Christian religions, like, they really portray anything outside of what is found within the Christian religion as bad or evil or scary when it's not. It's just different. It's just outside of what is known within that belief system. And I don't personally see how interacting with spirit or interacting with infernals or interacting with, fae or anything like that is any different than interacting with the spirit of God or
Mhm.
angels or saints or, like I just don't see how they're different. And when we look at spirit in a neutral light, it changes so much because you're basically saying, instead of living within this box of just what I know to be true for me, you're exploring beyond it and you're opening up so many avenues for you to really build connections with the other side that can be so beneficial. Like, and I mean, it's not to say that like you have to have a spiritual practice, right? You can go into this paranormal investigation without having any kind of spiritual practice at all. But I think going in with an open mind is the biggest thing that will help you have an experience, if above all else. Like, going in with an open mind and willing to have like sit in discomfort, I think is two of the biggest things for you to do, or the best things that you can do to have an experience,
Mhm.
because spirit understands when we're scared,
Oh,
right? They
yeah.
can feel that.
Mhm.
And if spirits know that you're really scared, they're not going to try to interact with you unless they're trying to antagonize you, which of course it can happen, but
Oh,
it
yeah.
tends to be very rare. But there are spirits who want to genuinely connect,
Mhm.
but they
Mhm.
won't in a way where they're like touching you or, interacting with you on any kind of physical level if they know it's going to freak you out. And it's also important to remember that like when you have experiences, the way that you interact, the way that you react to those experiences is also noted by the spirits. So for example, if a spirit touches you and you're like, "Oh my god, a spirit touched me," and you're like running away, they're not going to try to do it again. They're going to be unless you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like that was my initial response. I'm not necessarily afraid of it. It was just my initial response. So I welcome that again." Like,
Mhm.
let
Mhm.
them communicate the way that you would if it was a normal person in the room with you that you could physically see.
Mhm.
Because if I was a spirit and I touched them and they freaked out, I would feel so bad. I would be like,
Me
"Oh
too.
no. Oh no, I didn't mean to scare you."
Oh, no.
Oh no.
I've
So like,
scared them.
yeah, I've scared the human. So let them know, like, "Hey, like, I'm so sorry, like, that was not the reaction that I wanted to have, but I'm really excited about that interaction. I'm excited that we might be able to interact that way." Like,
Yeah.
let them know how you're feeling and walk them through what you're feeling so that you can help bring yourself down from that initial response. But they can also understand how they can approach you moving forward that you're gonna feel comfortable with,
Mhm.
right? So
But I
that
won't sugarcoat the fact that there are spirits who will
yes.
antagonize you to get fear out of
Yes.
you, because that's a huge burst of energy that's very easy to get out of
Mhm.
someone.
Yeah, and I've had
Love is another
experiences
one.
where
Love
yes,
is a burst of energy, but fear is
yes.
much easier.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, the main times that people release the most energy, like, when I look at people and I can see their aura, the times that I've seen their auras expand the most is when they are overjoyed, like,
Mhm.
filled with love or filled with excitement or happiness, when they're angry, when
Mhm.
they're scared, or when they're orgasming.
Yep. Yep.
Those are the main times that
Yep.
people, like, release the most energy. And so spirits will use that to their advantage if they are spirits who haven't learned how to gather energy from other spaces
Yeah.
or places or things. They will use people who come into their space as a way to siphon that energy and use it. Now, I do want to say, like, it is possible for it to happen. It does happen. I've seen it happen. I've experienced it happening, but it doesn't happen as often as people think it does.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really feel like maliciously centered spirits are much more rare than people think. Most spirits are either confused or they're just kind of neutral or they're like really wanting to connect. There was a spirit in Preston Castle actually that I was walking through. I was walking through the building one of the first times that we were doing an investigation there. And I was walking through the building with another medium, David Deerfeeder, who just amazing medium. Like if he offered private services for mediumship, I would absolutely be recommending people to him because he's amazing. But we were walking through the building together and he was just kind of letting me pick up on what I picked up. And then I would let him know what I was getting and he would confirm or deny whether or not that was a spirit that was commonly there. And we were walking through and I looked into a room and there was just this spirit hanging from the ceiling. And
Love
I was
that.
like, "Oh." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, that's so and so. Like, don't worry about it. He does that to everyone." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, "Yep, he's never in the same place twice because he knows you'll expect it otherwise." And I was just like, honestly,
I
vibes.
wanna be
Like,
friends with that one.
right, right. But, yeah, I mean, they will do that. Like, if they know that you can see them, they will do things that are scary, like expand their mouths to,
Oh,
3 times their size.
fucking hate that.
I don't like that. It
I
just
hate it.
why?
Oh,
Why?
I
Yep,
that one
yep,
bothers me so much, and
yep.
the other one that bothers me and, like, I love horror movies, gory stuff,
Oh, me too.
the gorier, the better, the
I
more
love horror
scary,
movies.
all
I
of it.
can't do gore, but, like, suspense or, like,
Oh, all of it.
mystery or paranormal horror, like, sign me
Yeah,
up.
same,
Yeah.
give me all the you can
Mhm.
throw the gore in there, I don't care. I want it
Yep,
all. The thing that gets me is the really wide, long, elongated mouths
yep.
and the, inhuman,
Oh,
leg
movement?
and arm movements.
Yeah,
I
like the
don't fuck
crawling
with
and stuff,
that.
yeah.
I don't and they'll do that, and I'm like,
Yep.
"Y'all, you're just rude." Like, you like, you're just
Yeah.
being so rude
And don't be
because you
fucking rude.
don't be fucking rude, Jason. So
Mhm.
it's just like I don't understand why they would do that though, if you can see them when they probably just want someone to talk to, but at the same time, it's that burst of energy, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I
Well,
know that
because
I've
some
done
of
this
them
before and it scares them,
yeah.
so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah. Some of them don't want to interact, but they want to have enough power
Yeah.
to just kind of exist. Then
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
I'm the same way. Like I don't like the expanding mouths. Like please keep your mouth to yourself. And also floating. Like
Yeah.
use your goddamn ghosty legs, okay? I'm sorry. Like that scares the shit out of me when they float. Like I just I can't. I can't. Okay? I know you have
The
the
little
ability to
hover
fly
boy.
now, but like please stop. Like don't be
It's
a
just
fucking hoverboard.
it's
Like just
just it's the irregular body it's just fucking like, and it's good in a movie, like, I can deal with it in a movie to a degree,
mhm.
which is why
But it's
I'll watch
when
more
it's
movies that
in
do
the
it.
room with you, you're just like,
But
"Absolutely
if it's
not.
in the fucking room
You
with me,
stop that."
bro, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like, I'm
that's a
out.
no.
That's a hard fucking
Yeah,
no.
I'm trying to think of the other thing. Oh, well, sometimes when they're missing eyes, I'm not really a fan. That
Yeah,
that
yeah,
can sometimes be scary, or,
yeah.
like, I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
those
Yeah,
can be scary sometimes, or,
I would
like,
agree.
when, like, half of their head is missing, that can be scary too, but
Yep.
from the
Mhm,
most part, like, I can deal with most of it, like,
mhm,
I see spirits with injuries all the time, but
mhm.
just certain things, I'm not gonna have a scream response to it, but I'm gonna freeze a little bit and feel very uncomfy.
Mhm. I'm gonna get the fight or flight is what kicks in for me. That's
Yeah,
with the, like,
yeah,
rush of warmth and energy to the
mhm,
legs to run, but I
yeah,
won't not 'cause I wanna talk to them.
yeah, yeah.
I wanna be
I'm just
like,
like
"So, when did you decide to do this little stunt?"
yeah, yeah. I love spirit interactions though, like,
Mhm.
God, every
I do
time I
too.
interact with spirit, like, it just makes me happy. Like,
Yeah, me
it
too.
when I come back from paranormal investigations ooh, which we should talk about paranormal hangovers.
Oh
Ugh,
god, those are
ugh.
so real.
It's rough, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
man, those
it's a thing.
suck.
It's a thing.
It is a fucking thing, like,
Mhm.
100% it's a thing.
Yeah.
It'll knock you on
Um,
your ass for a
it
few days.
really does. I don't wanna make it sound like it only happens to people with abilities, but I do feel like it happens a little bit more intensely to people with abilities because, for example, when Alyssa and I did the investigation at the chateau, when we go into investigations, Alyssa and I go through life with what we call blinders on most of the
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
because it gets really distracting
Yep.
otherwise. Like I'm trying to go through Walmart, I can't see everybody's dead grandma by them. Okay. It's going to
Mhm,
get
mhm.
distracting. I need to focus on what I'm doing, get my groceries and get
It's
out.
like an army of cats and dogs
Yeah.
following people.
Yeah, like, I love
I
it,
just
and people I'll ghosty watch
but
for a little bit.
I'm just here for my fucking Pop-Tarts and
Yeah,
Nutella, like, come on,
I
you
gotta get
know?
the Pop-Tarts, I gotta get the milk, and I gotta get the Nutella, and I gotta get my butt home.
Yep,
So, we put blinders on most of the time, and when we're paranormal investigating or doing sessions, we take those
I'm
blinders
off.
off. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all off. We're completely exposing ourselves energetically to what's happening around us so that we can pick up on as much as we can pick up on while we're there. And so when we did the chateau, we were there overnight
mhm,
and I left my abilities just open completely from the
same.
time that we got there until the time that we left. So that is overnight, whereas usually it's like for a couple hours at a time while we're doing sessions or something like that, that we keep it open, then we kind of close it again.
Yep,
When you keep your abilities open for that amount of time, it's like an energetic sensory overload.
and it is,
And,
yeah,
that's the best way I can describe it because it's not necessarily draining, it's an overload of things. So, when we got back to Alyssa's place, it was almost difficult for me to interact with my deities for, like, a couple hours, if not,
mhm,
like, that night, because I was just so like, I kinda needed to shut down and hermit and then, like, regain stuff before I was able to interact with spirit again. Because it is kind of like this it for lack of a better way of describing it, I kind of see my abilities almost as exposed nerves,
mhm.
and when I take the blinders off, it's like taking off any kind of armor that helps me to not have those be, oversensitized.
Mhm, mhm.
So when we're going through this, it's essentially just putting out feelers everywhere. So when you take them back in, it's like you have to just not do anything. So I think when we did that night, we got home and we immediately took naps for
Yep.
like 5
It
hours.
was it was
It
more
was
like a short sleep than
yeah,
a long nap. It
yeah. We
was
took like our second sleep or something. We came home, we took really, really, really long naps until dinner time. Woke up at dinner time, stayed up for maybe all of 3 or 4 hours and went back to
right
sleep.
back to sleep, yeah.
Yep, and just slept the entire night and into the next morning, and when I woke up the next day after that, I felt okay, but I still was just kind of in this dazed state. Like,
Mhm.
I was just kind of we I remember us sitting on the couch, just staring out the window and just being like, "How you doing?" And you were just like, "Eh." Uh, and we were just sitting there drinking our tea and talking,
Just
but, like,
absolutely, like,
just
out of it.
yeah, just, like, in this really dazed
I
state, but that's
remember.
just
So exhausting.
but it's so worth it, though, because,
Oh, it
like, the
is.
experiences is so cool, but it's so exhausting.
It is, and
Like,
it's
I
the other thing too is, like, if you get information from spirit from more than just one sense, imagine just getting
yeah,
information through all those different senses that work well for you.
right.
And so we would feel things, see things, hear things,
Smell things.
smell things. Like it's so much to happen all
Mhm.
at once in process. And like, you're dealing with your gut reaction at first, and you're like, okay, I need to move through this and like try to figure out what they're trying to communicate. Where do we go now? It's always being
Yeah.
on, and that like, and
Well,
even
because
during
you're
the sleep.
using yeah, you're using your clair senses and your mundane senses to
Mhm,
full
mhm.
capacity because 'cause you're trying to, analyze what is being said through the spirit box. You're trying to hear, what's physically going on around you as well as what's spiritually going on around you, like, it's a lot. It's a
It's like
lot.
no autopilot. You're just
Yeah.
always listening, hearing.
It's a hypervigilance.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even when we were sleeping, I didn't go to sleep asking for nothing to come through. Like I was like, anything that
Right,
wants to
right.
come through can come through.
Yeah.
So, it's even when you're sleeping, you're having those experiences. So, it was a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, that's why a lot of times when you watch paranormal shows, because some shows don't really show it, but a lot of paranormal shows will have, like, days in between the
Mhm.
investigations, and that tends to be why, because there is that paranormal hangover. Even if you don't really have a lot of, abilities, it's still gonna happen to some degree. For most people, it's just being tired. For other people, it can feel like, getting sick, like, almost like body aches and, like, exhaustion. For other people, it's like getting headaches and being really out of it. Like, it depends on the person. They feel fine after a day or 2. But one of Alyssa's and my, dreams is to eventually be able to, like, travel around the US and the world doing paranormal
Yeah.
investigations. But just for anybody out there, scouting us out, first of all, yes, please take us on
What's
these
up?
trips. We wanna go so bad. Just
We're
please let us be the
we're
paranormal
really good
rangers. We all we're
paranormal
we're
rangers.
we're so good at it.
We're the best
We would do the
paranormal rangers.
best job. Please let us
We would
go.
be
Okay.
so nice and
Anyways,
ghosty.
yeah, we're
We'll bring
so
tea.
good at it.
We'll bring some tea.
Um, but if you're scouting us out, just know that we're gonna need breaks. We're gonna need
Yeah.
like 2 or 3
Yeah.
days in between investigations, and we'll be good. We'll be good
And
to
it
go.
also makes us hungry as fuck.
Oh
Like,
my
I
gosh, I
remember
was
we were
starving.
so hungry when we came back and
Mhm,
during the whole thing, like, it's just
mhm.
ooh-wee.
We ate so much poutine that night.
There was a lot of protein we
There was a
so
lot of poutine.
much protein.
Mhm.
But, yeah, it's
Yep.
honestly, if you're interested in trying a paranormal investigation for yourself, I think a great way to get started would be to have your protections in place, get a sense of, like, where you wanna go and bring a friend. Bringing a friend is
Mhm.
always good for, like, mundane protection and stuff. Make sure you're
Yeah.
not trespassing. Make sure you get permission if you're going to, a building that isn't owned by you. I mean, even though we were free to investigate the chateau, for example, we still asked for permission to
Yeah.
wander
Yeah.
around, it's just
Well,
polite.
and asking permission also gives you a way for them to show you places that you wouldn't
Yeah.
normally be able to access because they know that that's what you're going in for. And if you go in respectfully and you ask for permission, even if they don't care whether you ask for permission or not, it still is something where they're going to respect you more for that. And,
Mhm.
you know, it's just going to be better overall. So I highly recommend making sure that you're not trespassing or anything. That's
And they'll
always good
also
vibes.
show you really cool things or, like, tell
Yeah,
you really
or
interesting
hot
stories.
spots.
Hotspots,
Mhm.
yeah, that's how we got the goods. And
Yeah.
it's a good way to do it, but one of the easiest tools to get a hold of, there's a few. I was gonna say it would be a spirit box, but actually, no, I would
Mhm.
say it would be, there's apps now on the phone.
There are apps. My recommendation is to use it with airplane mode off and with airplane mode on. If it only
Yeah.
works if airplane mode is off, I don't think it's legitimate.
Mhm.
If it does work with airplane mode on, I feel like it could have the potential to have results. I prefer using an app in conjunction with a tool that is similar so you can see things coming through. So, like an Ovulus, app with a spirit box and see if the similar word comes through on both. I'll have it linked in the description, but there's a website where a lot of people get their ghost hunting equipment called ghoststop.com. That's where I've gotten a lot of my equipment. It can get sometimes pricey, but they have sales every once in a while. We're not sponsored by them. We should be, but we're not.
We totally
um,
should be.
yeah, Ghost Stop, if you're listening, like, please sponsor us. That would be so cool.
Sponsor.
Please sponsor
We're
us,
so
gosh,
good at
please.
talking with ghosties.
But they have sales a lot, and they recently moved to a new location, so they have inventory that they're trying to move out of the way. So they have some stuff on sale, but highly recommend checking them out. And there's also, of course, Amazon. Amazon does have some paranormal investigative tools now. The only thing with Amazon is that it's not going to have as big of a selection, and the selection that they do have is like honestly not that great unless you're getting basic stuff like voice recorders and just various things that you can use for paranormal investigation, but it's not specifically meant for that, like EMF detectors, temperature gauges, camcorders, and things like that that you would be using in paranormal investigation, but it isn't specifically marketed for that. Ghost Stop is where you're going to find, or sites like that is where you're going to find REM pods, spirit boxes, EMF detectors that are shaped like bears, like things like that. And they usually have in their stock like the newer types of paranormal investigative tools that you're starting to see on like Ghost Adventures and stuff like that that they're experimenting with. So if you're wanting to really seriously get into paranormal investigation or you just want to have some paranormal investigative tools, that would be the site that I would recommend because they have a lot, they have a big selection of stuff and it tends to be fairly well priced too.
Yeah.
So yeah, but with that said, that was everything we wanted to share. But if any of you have questions or anything like that, send them our way, and we would be happy to answer the questions in our sub episodes or on our Discord. I know that some people ask questions about like paranormal stuff on our Discord, and that can be a really fun way to have connections and discussions on all things paranormal and
Mhm.
spiritual. So there's that as well. And like I said, I'll have the links to the Ghost Stop website and our merch in the description below. So you
Yay.
can check that out. And yeah, just I'm excited to be able to talk about this stuff because I love paranormal investigation. Like it is absolutely a passion of mine and Alyssa's. And I just want more experiences like this. I
I
want it
love
so
talking
bad.
with the ghosties all over the
Me
world. It
too.
just makes me
Me
so
too.
happy. They're
Mhm.
so sweet and
Mhm.
lovely, and they have such good
Yeah,
stories.
I know, they have such good ones.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyways, thank you for joining us, everyone. We hope you have a good rest of your month, and we will see you in October.
See you in October.
Spooky
Brr.
season.
Bye.
Bye.